Pat, you could mute maybe. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. This is the Rotary Club of Toronto. I'm John Fortney, your club president, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual meeting for today. After the invocation and the recognition of traditional lands, please stay tuned for the playing of the national anthem. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of many Indigenous peoples who have walked and cared for this land for 15,000 years. They include the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the treaty peoples of the Mississauga of the Credit. Make your travels through time worthwhile. Choose the roads that allow you opportunities to grow and change. Look for adventures that challenge your abilities and find mysteries in life that excite your sense of wonder. Search for the truth that you believe in and discover as many secrets about life as you can. Don't be so concerned about finding the easiest roads to travel, but follow the roads that lead you towards being the Rotarian you really want to be. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, the Queen. Thank you again, Brigitte and Glenn. Please be seated. Rotarians and guests, it's now my pleasure to introduce our head table. I'm pleased to have the following people sitting with me today, or at the head table with me today. John Stevenson, a Rotarian since 2020. His classification is Law, International Trade and Investment. He is a senior associate with Dentons Canada, LLP, and he is going to be our Let's Be Personal speaker for today. Lori Brazier, a Rotarian since 2006. Classification, Strategic Sourcing. She's the team lead, External Labor Services, Procurement at Scotiabank. Chair of our Community Services Committee and host to our guest speaker today, who is Dave Dame. Dave will be more formally introduced shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, our head table. For our virtual meetings, we do not have a monitor to introduce visiting Rotarians and guests, so I will proceed. I didn't see any visiting Rotarians. I do know we have a couple of guests that are checking on our club, so we'll be on our best behavior. I hope they enjoy the meeting today. To our visiting Rotarians, if there are some here, thank you for choosing our club for your makeup. We hope that you enjoy the meeting. To all of our guests, welcome to the virtual meeting today. Please feel free to contact the office and find out how you may be able to make a difference by joining us. Rotarians, please welcome our guests in the tradition of our great club. Announcements, you've heard this one. You may already know this, but in case you do not, you should be aware that these virtual Rotary meetings, that if you have your video camera on, that you may show up on the YouTube or Google Meet recordings or the live streaming. If you do not want to appear, please turn off your video. We will not be able to edit you out afterwards. Our district sends me weekly newsletters, and if our agenda time permits going forward, me or another Rotary member will try to share some district information with you. Today, I just want to remind you that the next Tuesday talks will be April the 13th at 7 p.m. and join Peter Hernandez, an award-winning inspirational speaker, Rotarian, and Toastmaster, and Mark Blackmore, Toastmasters Area Director, to answer the following question. What is Toastmasters? What will it do for me? How will it improve the Rotary experience? You can check with the district to register. Thank you. Now, it's time for our personal speaker. All right, let's be personal speaker. Over to you, Sean.
Thanks, John. Thank you to the club for inviting me to be the speaker today. Feel it's very personal, given that I'm speaking out of the comfort of my own home. Happy to speak a little bit about myself and get to let everyone else get to know a little bit about me. As I joined the club in the early days of 2020, just before the pandemic hit, those good old days when we could still actually meet in person. So I don't have haven't had the opportunity to meet a lot of you. I guess first off, I could talk a little bit about my own Rotary experience, which started in the Toronto Club in early 2020, but has been a much more significant experience over the course of my life. My first real experience with Rotary was as a Rotary Youth Exchange student, where I had the pleasure of spending a year in Brazil, where I studied on a youth exchange. I came back, I did some more schooling, and eventually I was ready to do some graduate schooling. And I then had a second encounter with Rotary, where I had the pleasure of being a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. And I did my graduate studies over in the UK, where I completed a Master in Laws at University College London. So given those two experiences, which were really life highlights, there was only one real option for me, and that was eventually joining Rotary, which I was very happy to do in 2020. And then very sad shortly after, when our Rotary meetings all went virtually and couldn't get to know everyone on a more personal basis. So it's great to be able to speak today. In terms of my day-to-day, my job, as it was mentioned before, I'm a senior associate at Dentons, which is a large global law firm, and my practice generally focuses on trade and investment. So what does that mean? I mean, that's broadly speaking, we like to say that if there's something coming in or moving out of Canada, we could probably be of assistance. So it covers the waterfront, from everything from trade to sanctions compliance to import exports to free trade agreements to WTO disputes. All of that sort of fits into my wheelhouse, whether it's domestic trade in Canada or whether it's international trade from Canada or global trade more generally. A couple of recent highlights for me have been currently acting in a Canada Free Trade Agreement arbitration, and was part of our global team's pitch to join or to assist the UK government with Brexit. So we are currently helping them out with some of the trade issues that have arisen in the context of Brexit. Other parts of my day-to-day in terms of work, I am a specialist in foreign investment disputes. So that's disputes under the major trade agreements and bilateral investment agreements. So if you've heard of NAFTA Chapter 11 disputes, I've been involved in some of the most significant recent NAFTA disputes of memory. But that also includes the Canada-European Agreement, the CPTPP with 10 other Asian countries, and many other agreements. Outside of work, I frequently write and speak on trade and investment topics, and I'm currently in the process of completing my PhD in those topics. So between the two, it keeps me busy. These days when I'm not doing any of those, I'm trying to relax with my wife, Stephanie, who is a professor in Canadian politics, and our recently acquired pandemic pup, which we named Joni Mitchell. So I guess that's a little bit about me, and I'm happy to field any questions. I guess the challenge I have for you guys was that if you found any of what I said interesting, please reach out, and I'd like to just have a call, or we can exchange some emails and just get to know each other better. So that's it for me. Thank you, and back to you, John.
Thank you so much, Sean. Like I say every week, it's so amazing to get to know each other better, and especially some of you new people who joined the end of last year or this year, which we have not personally got to meet any of you. It's really, really great. And I challenge members of the club to take Sean up and give him a call, say hello. Fascinating. I mean, my degree is international relations, so that stuff is totally fascinating. Who knows, maybe you may be a speaker one week at Rotary. It's an incredible topic. So thank you so much. Really appreciate getting to know you virtually, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of the new members that none of us have got to meet personally, and I really applaud staying with it. And once you all get to know us all and meet us in person, you're going to just even doubly like everything you're experiencing. If you would like to get on this Let's Be Personal Speakers list, please contact Don Bell. It's now time for our guest speaker introduction, and I would love to pass things over to Lori Brazier. Over to you, Lori.
Thank you, President John. It's my great pleasure today to introduce Dave Dame. Dave is one of our executives at Scotiabank. Well, up until the end of today, we're losing him to Microsoft, but we wish him all the best. I heard Sean speak at one of our recent town halls back in the fall. And so I think you're going to find this a very inspiring talk. A bit about Dave. He's a leadership coach, an enterprise agile leader and trainer. He has over 20 years of product management and leadership experience. He leverages that experience to drive large-scale transformation in complex organizations, and certainly a bank is a very complex organization. His practice focuses on scaling change by building up high-performing teams through training and empowering workforces. Over the course of his career, he has trained over 600 professionals, wow, in product management, leadership, and agile delivery. He's worked with technology companies such as OpenText, PTC, MCAP, and he, in many cases, has improved delivery times by over 150%. Amazing. Dave also spends a significant portion of his time coaching well-seasoned executives. He is very proud that he has played a role in the development of nearly 20 SVP level and C-level executives. So over to you, Dave. Looking forward to your talk.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me. First off, I want to thank the Rotary. When I was really little in Windsor, Ontario, I couldn't get into our local grade school, and the Rotary of Windsor put a ramp in so I could go to regular school, because that was in the early 70s, late 70s, that there were still things not accessible. But if it wasn't for that ramp, who knows, I might not be in front of you today. Today I want to talk to you about inclusion has to be purposeful. And first off, I like to say, I'm not doing this as an equality play. I really truly believe that cognitive diversity is essential in solving global and complex problems. So the only way we can do it is to get people with diverse backgrounds and experiences to do that. So today I'm going to share with you a bit of my story, and then share with you what you can do to make inclusion deliberate throughout the whole life cycle of an employee. Does that sound interesting? I'm going to take no response as yes. So when I was born in 1971, my parents were told, with David having cerebral palsy, he might not live past 12. He may not speak clearly, if at all. Unfortunately for you today, I can speak quite well. And even if he does, don't expect much, because there's not much somebody with cerebral palsy can do in the world today. So they advised my parents to put me in an institution. In 1971, that was the status quo. But my parents weren't really visionaries. They weren't really very modest, blue collar. So they didn't have a vision what the future would be, but they knew resilience. And so they decided to say no on the institution and try to navigate a world that wasn't ready for somebody with cerebral palsy. And through this experience, I learned to be a great change agent. Because I like to say it's not my cerebral palsy that holds me back, rather, it's the environment that can accommodate my cerebral palsy, which holds me back. So my parents had to fight the school boards to get me in because I was born before the rights existed. So I feel fortunate that I got to live when there was nothing, to living when there is something, to now I can provide a future where it's better for those that are behind me. But my parents really taught me that grit. And I ended up going to grade school doing well. And I remember when I was in grade 13, our OAC. Some of you will remember what that is. If you don't, you're lying to me. I remember I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to go into business or computer science, or some of my friends were going out west to go find themselves. With my dad being a blue collar person, going out west to find myself was not an option. So my dad walked down the stairs and said, David, let's be honest, with you in a power wheelchair, you're not going to be a construction worker, fireman, or police officer. But you know what else you're not going to be? Living under my damn roof for free the rest of your life. So you better figure it out. And to his dismay, I decided to go away for university. And luckily at the time, there was human rights that were just making it a legal requirement for universities to accommodate somebody in the classroom. What they didn't yet accommodate is the use case if I was coming out of town and I would have to live in residence at a university. Because prior to then, my mom and dad were my caregivers. They got me up, showered me, and dressed me so I look as beautiful as I do in front of you today. But when I went to go to university, I wasn't bringing mom and dad with me because that would be just lame. How can I do stupid drunk things with mom and dad around? So what I had to do was to be creative and interview people that were perfect strangers to me the day I interviewed them. But then I'd have to be naked in front of them merely 3 days later. That was the vulnerability that I was going to have to prepare myself as I started going through a world that wasn't ready. And luckily, I graduated top of my class, moved back to Windsor. Don't know why, because there wasn't really any white collar jobs in Windsor. It took me 9 months to find my first job. And out of those 9 months, I either couldn't physically get into the office or I couldn't even maneuver the office when I got in there. But you know what? I finally landed my first job. I became a logistics coordinator for the training for Chrysler Canada. So at that time, that job required me to do a lot of paperwork. These hands with cerebral palsy weren't meant for paperwork. So what was taking my peers 8 hours a day to do something took me 12 hours a day. And it wasn't that I was not shy of working overtime. I was grew up in a family where grit was. But you see, I found out the first day that my power wheelchair couldn't fit in the bathroom. So I had a choice to make then. I could have either raised a concern, but because during that time it took me 9 months to find my first job, I didn't feel safe to ask. So I held it every day for 12 hours for 3 years. Imagine this, you're very careful on the water you drink because you know you're going to have to restrain from going to the bathroom for 12 hours. But luckily for me, that was when technology was coming huge, right? I was the first to get a computer on my desk. And because I've always used technology to be that environment equilibrium, to really be able to do things I physically couldn't, I quickly started building a website because there was this new thing called the internet that I was pretty confident was going to stick around. I built a website so people could register themselves and the event places could sign up for what they were going to host it. So what was taking me 12 hours a day was now taking 3. The guy in a wheelchair was getting his work done 5 hours sooner than his peers. I was like, who's disabled now? And it wasn't like I was bright or a genius or any of that, but because of my diverse needs and my diverse experience, that sensitivity to that mismatch made it a problem for me to solve first. So that's why I built the website and we rolled it out. And then that started my career because when I went to university, it wasn't like they had a profession called change agent, right? But I was able to see the mismatches in environments and use agile tools to either use technology, people, or change in process to create efficiencies. Because of my sensitivity, because of my diverse perspective, I could do great things. And I was going through all over Chrysler, I was getting praise. My boss calls me in his office, he goes, Dave, he goes, the executive team is ridiculously proud of what you've achieved and how you're helping us. What do you need? Do you need a bigger team? Do you need more of these computer things? Do you need an office? Do you need, if I would have just stayed quiet, I might have got a private jet. But stupidly, I said, there's one thing you could do for me. You could build the bathroom accessible. And he just sat there in a haunting look that I could still see it. He realized over the last 3 years, he not once seen me in the guy's bathroom. He first said, well, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, I was so grateful that I landed my first job. I didn't feel safe. So this is an important thing to remember. We can't always expect somebody to feel safe enough to speak up. That's why we need psychological safety for diversity and inclusion to exist. If we don't make it safe where I can ask, then maybe I won't. So now through my career, I've progressed from begging a job till I've been poached to every company. So much I get the company that hires me write my resume so they can have it for their files. Because I haven't had to submit a resume. I'm just smart and I keep the last one somebody writes so I can reuse it for the next. So thank you, Scotia. But it was a big turnaround for that. And what I've learned is inclusion and diversity can't be just on the entry level roles or the individual contributor roles. As I move from company to company, city to city, I've learned as I progressed in my career, we always got to think about inclusion and accessibility. I became a middle manager director, and I had to start flying to Germany for my job. And I said, oh, I usually need to bring somebody with me because they dress shower me. They're like, well, sorry, our policies don't allow for that. And I said, well, you have 2 choices. You can update your policy, or I'm going to be in front of our clients unshowered in the worst clothes you've ever seen, trying to do my job. So of course, then they kind of realize they have to change those policies because see, they think accessibility is just for entry level jobs. And you always keep that fear in your mind as you do it, right? Even to this day, as a vice president at Scotia, my boss kept changing the meetings at the last minute. And because I couldn't quickly update my personal support worker with those times, a lot of times I would have to resort to just not going to the meeting. So I was losing my diverse voice in that meeting because I said, it's not their fault. They shouldn't be punished because I need to arrange my schedule. But that was the same thinking I used for the washroom. Finally, I messaged my boss and my peers and said, look, when these meetings change, I find it very difficult to handle the logistics on my end. Can we either give me more time up front or can we keep the meetings within these time ranges? And you know what happened? One of my female peers emailed me and she said, thank you. I was struggling getting childcare every time this was changing for me. So what I learned was what was a need for me was also a need for others. And now, even as a VP, now I hire people. I always try to make sure I get diverse people on my team. And unfortunately, you always get the same pile that graduated from the same schools and that. But you really need to work further, not to sacrifice talent, but to get the top talent who happens to be diverse. That makes a great role, an amazing role, because then you can see each other's blind spots. And then you create it safe and keep it going from there. Because if we do that, we're going to get the complex kind of views and thinking and challenges. I love getting my ideas challenged. I love others getting their ideas challenged because that's the only way we go from good idea to a great idea. But this is very difficult to do because we take the easy route out. We take the same candidates from the same schools, from the same things. Let's not settle for whatever our HR professional gives us. Challenge them to get talent pools in other places that they haven't looked for. Because we're going to need it to be able to do it. We're going to need to deal with the uncomfortableness of a diverse team. We're going to need to struggle because we're dependent on it. Because it's in that resilience you and your company are going to do well. And I learned this resilience from my dad. After I graduated from university, we were sitting there, and he was a proud father, right? He's like, remember when I gave you a kick in the ass to choose school and follow through? See, following through is what you should do. And I go, yeah, Dad, follow through. While we're on that topic, all through growing up, I had to crawl upstairs to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And my dad would always say, son, this weekend I'm going to build a ramp for you. And he never did. So I went to my dad, you know, you never built me that ramp you always said you were going to do it. And a typical dad response, he said, well, son, I did that on purpose. And I'm like, oh, of course you did. How convenient. But he goes, you see, I'm not always going to be around to build ramps for you. You're going to have to learn to struggle on your own. 2 days later, he passed away. I didn't really know what he meant until I had to go through my profession to where I am today. And it was because he could see the world differently. I could see the world differently, that a different world was available to us. So, like all of you have done during these COVID times, whoever would have thought we'd be doing all these meetings virtually? Whoever would have thought we'd be participating in a worldwide experiment of remote working? But you know what? We can do it. We can be purposely inclusive. We can be purposely diverse. Because if you see a different world, then you're going to have a different world available to you. Thank you. Did I turn the mute off? Oh, thank God.
Well, let's see. I don't have any questions in the comment section. Do we have any questions, Carol? Can you text me?
Is everybody still awake?
Oh, I think everyone's in total awe, to be honest. If you've been reading the comments on the side, you're blowing everyone away. Lori told me how amazing your talk was going to be. First off, kudos to your parents.
Absolutely.
It all starts there. I have very dear friends whose son has cerebral palsy, and I know just how unbelievable they are and what they do. And you're growing up in an even earlier time where it was even more difficult. And it's hard to think that just a simple thing like a ramp really changed your life. You got to go to school, you know, and I just think that is incredible. Do you still in touch with the Rotary Club in Windsor?
A little bit. They asked me to come speak, obviously, and I always love to, because if it wasn't for that one simple ramp, the amount of people I've been able to influence and impact. And now my mom unfortunately has dementia, so she doesn't even remember. Like when I started at the bank, she goes, "Your hands are so screwed up, you can't deal with money." And I'm like, "Mom, you still don't really get what I do, but don't worry, I'll be fine." Um, but when I had these two amazing offers a couple weeks ago, I was like, how how proud would my parents be that I have two offers in front of me, that their son's going to be working for a worldwide bank like Scotia and moving on to a company like Microsoft that reporting into Seattle that's worldwide. Like, I couldn't imagine it because when I was going through school, I was just a typical dumb teenager, typical student trying to figure out what I wanted to do because I knew I couldn't live for free at home. So I had to better figure that out.
I find it, I know you're talking about going to, just being in a room changes. I just thinking of my friend's son at school. He goes to went to school. He's just graduated high school, and I would think just mere fact that he is in a classroom, everyone around him is affected and changed just by the mere fact that they're able to go to school, right? And it changes the world. Just every little thing we do, it's this ripple. And yours started with a ramp. I think that's just genius. Um, my brother was an executive at TD, and he had a very severe hand problem, and they had to come up with a computer that he could work the computer without using his hands. And I think technology is really helping move that sort of thing along just so much. The technology you use must be incredible.
But see, the funny thing is, and I show my other exec friends at the bank, and when they see me use it, they're like, "Can I use that too?" So what's built to help me helps give greater productivity for others. Like I can get my email read to me as I'm doing something else, right? So when they get to see me use that, and now all of you are dictating on your phones, and you have the same frustration I get to experience when it doesn't capture it just right. And so what's built, and that's why when I'm at Microsoft, I want them to move away from marketing them as accessibility features and say, these are all productivity enhancements that happen to help people with unique abilities. Because a lot of these features we're not aware of.
It's sort of just how you look at things, right? Different people have a
Exactly.
different view of the world. Yeah. You have been absolutely inspirational. I've been reading the comments. John Jones Simmons, who was with in the banking world, mentioned that Scotiabank was also the first bank to hire a blind person. Absolutely amazing. A donation has been made in your honor to the Peer Project, Youth Assisting Youth, or YAY. It's a community-based peer mentoring charity that matches high-risk youth with fully trained youth mentors. Youth receive consistent, specialized support and gain the resiliency and skills needed to overcome barriers and succeed in the face of adversity. This donation has been made in partnership with the Rotary Club of Toronto's Youth and Children's Service Committee. Again, David, thank you so much for your incredibly inspiring talk.
And
Wonderful.
thank you. And thank you for having me, and thank you for building those ramps because I want others behind me. It's not enough I made it. I want to make others be able to make it as well.
Well, in the words of Windsor and diversity, the first woman who's going to be president of Rotary International is from Windsor. So how's that?
Awesome. Windsor represent.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to talking, it's going to be a great weekend, lots of sun. But talking about diversity, I saw a video this morning, an Asian woman in Boston being attacked, and it just gutted me, absolutely gutted me. Brought me to tears, which of course most of you know it doesn't take much. We just have to be at the forefront. Today's talk and our racism series is just reminding us as Rotarians, there's a lot of hate out there, just unbelievable, nonsensical, and we have to be at the forefront of peace and diversity and just accepting everyone. And when we see something, we got to stop it. It's just, I just have no words. When I saw that video this morning, it just literally gutted me. We just can't hate anybody, and we have to accept everybody. And like David said, it just makes us richer, and the diversity just reflects so much better on all of us. And I love that our club is so diverse, and we need more. And I don't mean to be a downer, but that just hit me today as just wiped me. Next week, Friday, March the 26th, our guest speaker will be Mark Garnier, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Director for the Downtown Young Business Improvement Area. His topic will be Forever Young, Canada's iconic Main Street coming out of COVID. Please feel free to invite guests and share the links to connect. However, have them contact the office in order to be admitted to the meeting. Well, I hope everyone has a beautiful sunny weekend. Like Pauline, get out there and enjoy the sunshine, bike, hike, walk, enjoy, but please be socially distant. And we're almost there, but we still have to be vigilant. Look after each other, look after yourselves. Have a great weekend. The meeting is adjourned.